picked up the news I think as much news time this morning. I had to de-ice everything here.
Oh, you guys got ice today.
Parts of us got ice today. My neighborhood was icy, but others, as I made my way down the hill to work, were not as icy. So it's just, I think it depended on where you were.
Thank you for calling. We will return to take your call in just one moment.
Caller 7, looks like.
It's usually Brian.
Yep, that's Brian.
Yeah.
The music?
It's the hold thing.
Oh, well, I didn't do it. I undid it. Is the music wonderful?
It's kind of short.
Oh, okay.
That's a very subjective question, Brian.
We knew we were in an elevator.
Then our efforts were complete.
There you go.
Yeah. And you've been voted amazing so far.
Did you get mine? I could not.
I feel like,
your instructions.
well, I think that IT, everyone's IT somehow blocks it from coming in. I don't know why.
Hey.
Because only got a couple back.
It's not like the old voting buttons that used to be in Windows.
Yeah, new school, and you have to like almost. I was just an experiment. I thought I would try it.
Let's move this up because I'm running for everybody. Gets too crowded. I can go to my office.
Is the phone, does it go by that one in the middle or the phone?
It goes by that, the Polycom.
Spider. Looks like it's playing on the worship. Those things are expensive.
Yes.
Yeah. I belong to a little group, but we have people dialing.
Girls, is there anybody in the room with you? Any board members?
No.
Yes, Rhonda, we have Eric Nielsen, Les Stonecker, Ronnie Batchelor, and Madeline was planning on joining us here too.
Oh, great. Okay, so. So I'm counting. I'm trying to decide if we have a quorum between what you have in the room and what we have on the phone.
Susan Grindle is on the phone.
Susan?
Julie? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did. I'm just counting. So I think we have a quorum then. Lauren, can you help me? Or Chelsea, rather?
So she's wondering if we have a quorum.
We do.
Okay. So thank you. I was thinking we did, but I wasn't sure. So I think it's 12:30. So if it's okay with everyone, let's go ahead and get started. We have a pretty ambitious agenda here. So
Rhonda, it would be helpful to know who's on the phone because we just have we have many callers with numbers, but we have names.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yep, we'll get there.
Okay.
I was just going to start by saying welcome, if that's okay, and happy holidays, and then we'll go ahead and do introductions. And why don't we start with the people that are in the room?
Wes Lucky, Deputy Director, Greater Columbia.
Jenna Shelton, Greater Columbia.
Eric Nilsson, Public Safety Representative.
Chelsea Chapman, Greater Columbia.
Ronnie Batchelor, Lord's Health, representing the consumer.
Comes down.
Carol Moser, Greater Columbia. Becky Cole, Greater Columbia. Diane Taylor, Greater Columbia.
Les Stallinger for education. And we believe that Jorge Rivera is also here too.
No,
Oh, he's on the phone.
I
Never
thought I
mind.
saw him get on the phone. Okay.
Madeline.
So is that everybody in the room?
yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's just start on the top with the names, and if you would say who you are and who you're representing on the board, which sector, we'll just go down the list. So we'll start with Amelia.
Hi, this is Amelia Davis with Coordinated Care. I'm just an audience member.
Okay. Deborah. Let's see, Deborah, we can't hear you. Are you able to speak? Okay. Joel?
Yes, Joel Chavez, PHPW, and just here as an audience member.
Thank you. Jorge?
Afternoon, everybody. Jorge Rivera with Molina Healthcare, representing the NCO Centers.
Thanks, Jorge. Julie?
Julie Peterson, representing hospitals.
Thank you. Lauren?
Lauren Noble, Greater Columbia ACH.
Thanks, Lauren. Marcia?
Marcia Baden, Garfield County Hospital District.
Thank you. Martin?
Martin Sanchez, Greater Columbia ACH.
Thank you. Penny?
This is Penny Bell with Ideal Balance, just a guest.
Thank you. Ruben?
Ruben Peralta, Greater Columbia ACH. Whoa.
Okay. Was the other there also?
The other Ruben.
I'm here too. Both Rubens are here.
Thank you, Ruben. Sam?
Sam Riddell, Greater Columbia.
Thank you, Sam. Sandra?
Sandra Suarez with Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic, representing FQHC.
Thank you. Victoria?
Hello, Victoria Boran with Ideal Option.
Thank you. Vizzini?
Yeah, this is Dan Vizzini with the Center for Evidence-Based Policy at OHSU.
Thank you, Dan. And then we have one, and Brian, I think I may have missed Brian.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm here. Brian Gibbons, Sunnyside Hospital, representing providers.
Okay, and then I have 4 callers that are unnamed. So if you would introduce yourself, that would be great.
Susan Grindle, FCOH representative.
Thank you, Susan. Anybody else? Okay. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and start at the top of the agenda. As always, we ask everyone to take a look at the attestation of conflict of interest and self-dealing transactions, and either now or at a point when we get to a specific agenda item, if you feel you have a conflict of interest, if you would speak up and point that out to us, that would be great. The consent agenda includes the board meeting minutes, and hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at those. Let's see. Who's running the show here? Chelsea, is that you running the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Chelsea's bringing that up in front of us. So have folks had a chance to look at the minutes? And if so, would somebody like to approve the minutes on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the minutes as are.
And
Ronnie.
Was that Ronnie? Okay. So I have a motion from Ronnie.
This is Jorge. I will second.
And a second from Jorge. Is there any discussion about the minutes? If no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. The minutes are approved. So do we have, so we have a report then from the GCACH staff.
And I suggest that there was an action taken between meetings that should be acknowledged at this time as part of minutes.
Are you talking about the IDC distribution?
Yeah.
Because that's left. It's actually under the action item. Kind of
Okay.
informational.
All right. I just figured that we were looking at previous actions the board's taken, that would need to notice somewhere. But that one is all right.
It's on my agenda.
Thank you.
So Rhonda, you want us to go through the GCACH report?
Yes, please.
And so we'll just, as is customary, we'll just kind of go through the report, and those people who have written the articles can speak to them. And so the first one is about the behavioral health internship and training program that we want to launch in 2020. The board approved the actual policy last month. Thank you very much. We have had a tremendous amount of interest in this policy already. There are people that are contacting Lauren, and the navigators have been hearing from providers about when can they get started. So we're excited to launch the policy, and then today the application in front of the board to approve. So with the approval of the application, we'll be able to send out an application, and Lauren's working on distribution of the policy and has a kind of a communications plan laid out for that. And I don't know, Rhonda, you're next. You're the one that put together the Wordle. If you would like to talk about that, the word cloud.
Sure. And let me just ask you, for those people that aren't speaking, if they could mute their phones. We were getting, some of us are hearing kind of an echo. So this was just an exercise I did over the weekend. And so I, just looking at the weekly summaries that the staff have put together through the year, I put them together and turned them into a word cloud, and this is what came up. And I just thought it was interesting to think about the activity that we've had during the course of the year, and kind of look at sort of what stood out. Obviously, Sam has been on the road a fair amount. I did go back and look at it to see if maybe this was a concatenation of other words, and the word same was in there once, and I think there was the word SAMHSA was in there once, but other than that, it was all Sam. And then just the all Sam, and then the other just the other activities that I just thought it was just a nice way to kind of summarize a lot of the work that we all have done. So it was just a fun little activity that I thought was worth sharing. So there you go.
Thank you. I thought it was very fun. Sam is definitely front and center. Yeah. Way to go, Sam.
Sam gets a special stocking from Santa.
Hopefully not cold.
I think it's a vacation package that's on the Wheel of Fortune turntable.
Ruben, did you want to talk about the community resilience campaign?
Yes, let me take a drink of water first because I just had a big bite of the cookie. Yes, well, the community resilience campaign pilot in Yakima is moving along. We are currently just going through just about every piece of art, the print, the brochures, the radio, the imagery. We're busy looking them over after the task force provided feedback. So everything's coming together pretty well, and everyone's really, really excited about it. I hope you all are too.
And Ruben, that is the logo for the Build Community Resilience campaign. Is that correct? In the lower right-hand corner, the little graphic.
That's right. That's a logo, and there's a tagline that reads, "Resilient communities raise resilient children."
Nice. Thank you. Hey, Ruben.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you're hearing my voice. This is Ronnie. I want to tell you thank you. You've done an excellent job in pushing this forward, and it's really good work, okay? And I appreciate you doing that work.
Well, thank you. It's a team effort together with the staff, the board, and the task force. It's coming together well and very, very targeted as well. So thank you to all of you as well.
Yeah, but I know that you pushed yourself forward on that, and I appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you.
Sam, you're up on implementing shared decision aids.
Okay. As those that attended the November Leadership Council, Dr. Taylor was there, and Dr. Kevin Taylor from Lord's Medical Center. He actually role-played his shared decision aid. That is also a motivational interview tool that he is using, as well as a combined and self-decision-making tool. So he was able to incorporate 2 milestones together, as well as a skill set of motivational interviewing for his patient. And I think he really did a great job of role-playing that during our November leadership. And it just gives a little bit of information. I'm not going to read it verbatim because you can. You have it in front of you, but it just talks about how patients and clinicians have the right to collaborate in their decision making and what's right for the patient and their personal choice, and how to really impact the patient's behavior and their choice of care by giving them a lot of the decisions of what works within their care coordination.
Thank you, Sam. Vicki. So this article highlights all of the funding that the GCACH in the portal, as well as the year-to-date. Want to point that out. So we get this report from the portal, I believe it's every 6 months. Is that right? I'm sorry. So we get this report from the portal about every 6 months. Yeah, that's what we're great. So the full report has all the ACHs on it, but we were just showing you what Greater Columbia has done. So you can see the funds that have been earned in the 4 project areas that we're working on, as well as where they have been distributed. So you can see the money we spent for the Community Health Fund, administration, the short-term one incentives, which we're going to talk about later. And we've got, as you all know, we've got lots of contracts for lots more money to be sent out to our providers for their market transformation work next year. Great. And I think one of the takeaways is that next year we'll see a significant fewer dollars. I mean, this is kind of the peak of the funding. In terms of the way that the healthcare authority distributes the funding, it's kind of front loaded to get everybody up and running, and then there's a little bit less. And then next year, 2020, 50% will come from provider performance, and the following year, 2021, 75% will come from provider performance. So the first 2 years have really relied on reporting through Greater Columbia ACH to earn those incentive dollars. But in the outer years, we'll be relying on those performance metrics, and for providers to get really, up to speed on all the different metrics that the state has put out. And as you recall, Wes has talked about the Christmas tree and those metrics, and those are the ones that providers will have to meet in order to get those incentive payments. So that's why we're working so hard on the front end to help them be successful. It looks like Ruben's up again and talking about the Health Improvement Network contract for 2020.
Yes, I'm pretty sure all of you are familiar with the concept of the Local Health Improvement Network. One of the highlights in this piece, though, is that we've added the Yakima Nation. We're not sure exactly what they're going to name it, but we have a 7th Lynn, and there might be some loose ends there that we still need to finish up, but they are our 7th Local Health Improvement Network. And just a quick reminder, at the end of this month is the end of deliverables period, and almost everyone has met them. Probably the only thing that's left to get is this month's meeting minutes and attendance, and also an updated roster of members. And so the next payment is $10,000, and once we double check that everyone has met their deliverables, we will be issuing that check. And we're also working on the contract, the LIN contract for 2020, so expect the first draft any day now.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you. I think about providing contact. Sure. And just to add on to that about the LIN contracts, we're going to be paying, just a reminder, we're going to be paying the LINs out of the portal next year, so there won't be any big checks going through the mail, because that just makes my heart huge check through the mail. So so that will be good. Get those payments done through the portal. So the next section is just an update on where we are with our cohort, mostly our cohort contracts. So cohort 1, year 1 is ending. And so I've sent out amendments to that contract to all of the providers, and they're slowly coming back in, so that's great. And you know, we have our new scale and sustain model for the payments for 2020 for those providers. Everybody seems pretty happy about receiving some more money to continue to work for 2020. Cohort 2 providers, that our behavioral health providers, they have all of their contracts, and they've been paid for their first quarter milestone. Quarter 3 contracts, we're still working on getting those out. Some of the sites still haven't decided who their clinics are going to be. So the navigators and Rachel and I are working to get those identified, and so we can get those contracts out and get them signed. I know that they're anxious to get started also. Thank you. You want to talk about,
So Sam and I sat down and we decided on some topics for the 2020 and the date. So you can see that in January they're going to have a budget for the cohort 3 learning collaboration, and also cohort 1, the new site. If they need help with those budgets, they're also welcome to come to this meeting as well. Or if there's any kind of questions about reconciling their budget, if anybody has any for cohort 1 that need help reconciling their budget, they're welcome to come to that as well. In February, we are having the crisis providers present. They are working with the behavioral health ASO for that. And then in April, we're hoping to have a HIPAA policy change one, and we're in the process of reaching out to the person who will be coming to speak for that. June is actually going to be cohort 1 and cohort 2 and 3, but it's actually the exemplars are the ones who are presenting, so that's who's going to be presenting there. In July, we are going to have talk about shared care plans, and then we're also going to do a breakout session on different health electronic records with the people who have the same one, so that they can talk with each other to see if they have any questions about any of the milestones and how they're doing it with their EHR and things like that. And then in September, we're going to have another VDP, and also it's going to be how to maximize Medicaid reimbursement. And then December, we'll have a culture sensitivity and competency. So we're still, and like I said, in the process of doing the speakers for these. There may be a few that we might add. Later on, we talked about doing a community event on resiliency and trauma-informed care for the community, and we're going to do that in March. But that is just that's still going to be in the works. We have more stuff on that.
So is that March event going to be separate from the learning collaboratives, or part of them? Separate. Okay.
So, because there's still some open spaces and open months, is that idea, Diane, to have one a month still?
Well, we've kind of spread them out, 6 to 7 weeks. We kind of, because I know last year was a little intensive for people, and we had 2 huge summers right back to back. So we're kind of easing up this year and trying to hit the important things that we feel that didn't get talked about this year. So that's kind of where we're at. I don't think, I mean, we're still going to be part of, you know, the leadership council. And so we'll bring educational themes to the leadership council as well. Wes and I and Chelsea are working on a schedule for the leadership councils for next year. And so we're in fact in February, the leadership council, we're wanting to have the opiate resource network talk about their progress and how they're doing, and maybe have the recovery coalition come in and talk about how things are going in for that, and kind of discuss the things that they're working on. So I think that way the providers have not as many that they have to go to, but we got these are the big topics that we're talking about.
I got a question. For next year's agenda, is there any room for like a town hall for consumers?
We could do something like that. I mean, that's kind of more Reuben's area. And they're already doing a pilot program for the resilience people, so I'm not really sure.
What are you thinking of, Ronnie, in terms of the town hall? What do you mean by that?
So, just something that the consumers can come to understand the ACH and what their role is, as well as having maybe Jennifer Bliss come and hold the town hall, and just bringing people together.
She did a town hall for the behavioral health.
She did, and she did that over at Lord. But the problem with that is that there's a lot of people that aren't consumers that are attending, and she would like to have more consumers attend. And I'm thinking that if the Greater Columbia Accountable Community of Health came together with an outreach from Lord, and it's in a neutral place, that perhaps we can get some attendance to that and partner.
We could. We're not really, as an ACH isn't really, we don't really, aren't really marketing to the consumers. It's more for the,
right.
Really more for the providers.
But it's still working towards the outcomes of the consumer, and to know the work that you guys are doing for them on the behalf of having this transformation happen.
So I'm wondering how this is Dan. I'm wondering how the LINs might play a role in kind of doing that on more of a local level instead of a 9-county level. 9 counties seems to be a little overwhelming.
Sure. So we'll bring some ideas about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea. I just, I like the idea of having the LINs kind of holding it, because they are the ones that are really reaching, that's their goals to reach the consumers.
Right.
Helping them.
Plus, you know, the leadership councils are open meetings to outsiders, and consumers do attend that on top of our stakeholders and partners.
But I like the idea of telling consumers what is patient-centered medical home. You know, what changes might you be seeing in your provider offices as a result of the work that Greater Columbia is doing. So
yeah.
So
I think it would be a good thing, and I think that it would be an impact for the consumer to see that part. You know, because I think that they would be more apt to get the services that they need if they know that there's people behind them making sure that those services are available for them.
I wonder if the NCOs would be interested in that also, because I've seen some commercials from NCOs about that, how the changes are affecting their
right. And for behavioral health stuff, with Jennifer Bliss, she's planning on holding some town halls anyway. But if we make something available for her to come down.
She's from HC.
Right.
Okay, well, it's something to contemplate for 2020.
Anyway, I just wanted to bring that to the table. Thank you.
I think the last article is Martine.
Yeah. So this award came from when we had our kickoff meeting for cohort 2, October 30th of this year. And during the award ceremony, each organization received an award. And from Jenna's side and my side, we had to pick a provider champion that, was carrying practice transformation, getting provider buy-in within the organization. And Jenna picked Dr. Taylor from Lords. And, he's been good at, just taking practice transformation and running with it, and his team. So Jenna picked him from Lords. And my provider, she's actually an RN. She's a population health nurse at Columbia County Health Systems, Melissa Nishi. She has been there for I want to say half a year, and they really had a hard time filling that position at Columbia County Health Systems. And when she came in, she took on practice transformation and ran with it, and she's still going. And so that's why, we picked both Dr. Taylor and Melissa as our provider champions to receive the awards.
Thank you. Thank you, Martine. Thank you, Marta.
Okay,
So the
good
next
report.
thing is, thank you. So cohort 3 is, are you going to do that, Jenna?
I can.
Okay.
So this is the beginning of our cohort 3 tracker. It is a little empty, but it won't stay that way for long. We've been working with the sites to do their kickoff meeting. A lot of these sites haven't worked with Greater Columbia in the realm of practice transformation. A few have, but we're working on doing those kickoff meetings. We have some scheduled, as you can see, for the end of this week on 12/20. We're getting those scheduled out through January, and so we're looking forward to starting this work with the sites. And for the ones that we have met with, we've had nothing but great feedback, and they're very, very excited to get started on this work.
Thank you. So what's next, Sophie?
Well, like we have the election of the board officers.
Okay, so this is actually our oversight that we failed to put the election of officers on the agenda, although the nominating committee has been working to talk about officers for next year and possible board positions. So Madeline and Ronnie have been on the nominating committee and are here in person. I'll go with the board members and what we came up with as far as nominations. And so for board president, we are looking at Brian Gibbons. For vice president, Martha Lannon said she would not be able to continue, and so we're recommending Sandra Suarez. And for treasurer, since Brian would be moving president, we're looking at Julie Peterson, and then I would remain as secretary, Madeline Carlson, and then Rhonda Huff would then become our past president and serve in that capacity. So, anything else?
So before we go on to the sectors, do you want to move on that slate of officers?
Yes. So.
And this is Jorge. Could you repeat just one more time, president, treasurer? I know past president. I have Julie as treasurer, and I'm assuming she's already been told and she's okay.
She has.
Great news, and that is great news. And whom else?
And so Brian Gibbons, the president, vice president would be Sandra Flores, and
Vice
treasurer
President.
Julie
That's the
Peterson.
part I was missing. Okay. So Brian, President, Sandra, Vice President, Julie, Treasurer, and then Rhonda moves to past President.
And Madeline, secretary.
Yes.
I'm having a hard time hearing you guys. I'm sorry, it might be my phone. Who's the secretary, Wes?
Madeline Main Secretary.
No, there's some background noise, and I don't know if everybody else is hearing properly. Never mind me, but I didn't catch the secretary.
Okay, I'll repeat it one more time. So president, we are recommending the following slate. President Brian Gibbons, vice president is Sandra Flores, treasurer Julie Peterson, secretary Madeline Carlson, and past president would be Rhonda Hawk.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, so Madeline, are you presenting that in the form of a motion?
Yes, I will present that in the form of a motion.
Second.
And who was the second? That was Les?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion on the slate of officers being presented?
I guess the question was, has everybody is okay with it? And I think that was already answered yes, so.
Well, I believe everybody is on the phone. So, Sandra, have you been informed and are you okay?
Yep, I think they contacted all of us.
Okay, and I heard Julie say yes, and Madeline has said yes to continuing, and Brian, you've acquiesced to moving into the chair position. Is that correct? So your silence we're going to accept as a yes.
That's possible. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I want to hear him say yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. Yes. I can't tell which
All
button
right.
is the mute button.
Okay. Is there any further discussion from anyone? Okay, so all in favor of the slate of officers for 2020?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Then congratulations to our new slate of officers. Thank you all very much. Madeline, do you have more? Does the nominating committee have more to report?
Yes. So regarding the sector representation, there is one board member nomination that has been made for the area of philanthropy, and that information should be in your board packet. That is Loanne Ayers. She is the president and CEO of United Way of Benton and Franklin County, and she would be replacing Carrie. Carrie has taken a position in a different sector, and so for the sector for philanthropy, Loanne was nominated by Sue Jetter, and so we are putting this forth for the board to confirm the nomination.
This is Sandra, all motion.
And this is Madeline, all second.
Okay. And do you have just one sector that you're putting forward today?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second for Loanne Ayers from the United Way to represent the philanthropy sector. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay, then we welcome Luann to the board. Thank you very much, and thank you to the nominating committee for your work.
This is Sandra. Just a quick question. Do we need to nominate or reapprove the sectors that were up for, whose terms are up?
Probably.
Yeah.
So Chelsea is grabbing.
So that's what I was just asking. Do we have other sectors that we need to be reviewing, I think?
I don't know that we need to review, Rhonda. This is Jorge. But I do want to confirm for everybody that the MCO sector will be rotating. This will be my last meeting as sector rep, and the representation will switch to Kat Ferguson Latet, effective January.
Okay, thank you, Jorge. And Madeline, what about the other sectors? What process have we gone through with them? Can you share that?
So I'm sure I can share that with the board, Rhonda, Carol. So
oh, okay.
Chelsea sent out an email confirming and asking if there were any other nominations for these following positions: social services, workforce, public safety, consumer, housing, and FQHC. And all of the existing board members confirmed that they would like to stay on the board, and there were no other nominations from the email that we sent out. So I guess that we would need a motion to reapprove Susan Grindle, Dan Ferguson, Eric Nielsen, Ronnie Batchelor, Rhonda Huff, and Sandra Suarez is continuing on the board in their current sector position.
For another term.
For another term.
And I would just
motion.
And I would.
I'm sorry, Brian, were you trying to say something?
Oh, it's okay. Les took care of it.
Okay. So then, Les, could you tell us what you said? Because some of us missed it, or at least I did.
What I said is what Carol said. What I'm saying is the individuals whose terms are ending now and are going to continue with another term are Susan Grindle, Social Services, Dan Ferguson, Workforce, Eric Nielsen, Public Safety, Ronnie Batchelor, Consumer, Rhonda Huff, Housing, and Sandra Suarez, FQHC. This is what we just did, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. And so, I'm sorry, did somebody make a motion about that? I'm getting lost.
I think Les just made that motion.
Okay, and was there a second?
And I will second Rhonda.
Okay.
Well, we'll second and third that, huh, Jorge?
Thank you.
And is there any further discussion?
Good.
Okay, given that, is there, for anyone who is in favor of continuing the terms of those people just named, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
If anyone is opposed, please say nay. And the nominations are confirmed. Thank you all very much. Okay, now I think Brian and Becky, we're on to the financial reports.
All right, thank you, Rhonda. So we had our the finance committee meeting last week, December 13th. We went through all the financial statements, of course, and spent some time. A couple of key points. Becky always does this in very, very good detail. We noted that there were 3 pay periods in November, so the payroll was up a little bit. That's a function of having payroll twice every 2 weeks. We had some accounting fees that were associated with the 2018 audit, I think there was a little bit of marketing expense, nothing too spectacular there. Otherwise, everything on the monthly statement of activity was exactly as expected. So appreciate all of the work that the team does to put these financials together. At the end of the day, everything was appropriate. There were no questions. We also did let me add here a little bit, Becky. We also had a conversation about the RFP for a new financial auditor. Do you have any update on that?
I don't. Other than what we talked about, I'm reaching out. We emailed out to 10 different law and audit offices in the area, and we also put an ad in the newspaper, the local newspaper. And I heard back from one that said that they don't have audit capabilities, so they weren't going to respond. And then I heard back from Clifton Larson Allen this week, and they have some questions about the RFP, so we're going to get together on the 30th and answer their questions. But they seem interested. And I haven't heard back from anybody else, so I plan to actually make some phone calls this week and see if I can get some more interest.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I had in here as an agenda item from the Finance Committee, the Budget and Funds Flow Committee member nominations. Becky, can you speak to that? Or do you recall that?
Yes. So on that also, I have three nominations that nominees that I reached out to and asked for their bios. So as soon as I get those, I asked for them to send them to me by January 6th. And so we'll send them through to the Budget and Funds Flow Committee on Tuesday that week, and then the following Finance Committee meeting, we'll talk about it then. Then we'll bring it to the board in January, because that, according to the charter, that's the flow that has to happen for those nominations. So I do have 3 people that are interested, so.
Sounds fine. What else do we look at? I think that's about it. Go ahead.
You want to look at the roll-up? That's what we usually look at.
Yeah, if you would take care of that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So what Chelsea has up on the screen right now is our budget versus actuals as of November 30th. So I just wanted to show this because, I mean, as you all know, we're getting to the end of the year, and we still have a lot of items in our budget haven't used yet, but we also have some that we've gone over. Into finalizing the budget for 2020, you'll see that we made some adjustments in those areas, especially payroll. It was one that we definitely over budgeted. And then we have some travel and some other items that we went over, and so we made adjustments in 2020. And then we discussed this a little bit last time. We've earned $123,000 in our national money market account, which is a good amount of money. And the Finance Committee and Carol and I and Rachel are working on a strategy for doing some investing. You guys know we passed an investment policy last month, so we'll be working on that. And in January, Rachel and I are actually going to a small training about investment policies and investment nonprofits to invest in. So get some more guidance there also. That's all I have, Brian.
Okay, very good. At any rate, again, we had, these guys always do such a great job putting the financials together. I am ready to recommend and make a motion that we go ahead and approve the financial statements as presented for the month of November.
Okay.
This is Sandra. I'll second.
And a second from Sandra. Any questions or further discussion about the financials? Hearing none, could I have them all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? And thank you very much for the financial report.
Welcome.
Let's see. Are we going to talk about the draft budget for 2020? Okay.
So last month, showed you all the budget for 2020, the proposed budget for 2020, so the operations, yes. This is the operating budget for 2020. So we previewed it last month with you guys, so hopefully you had some time to digest it and review it a little bit further. We kind of went over it real quickly. So I don't know, Rhonda, if you want me to do that again, or I can talk about what the only thing that's changed on this budget from what you guys saw last month is the payroll expenses. Originally we had in there that we were going to bring on a navigator position in June or halfway through the year, and we decided to bump that up. So we put the salary for the navigator position for the full year instead of just half the year. Other than that, we didn't change anything. We didn't have travel expenses. There was concern that we didn't have much for travel expenses. We didn't bump those up yet. We're going to talk about that when we get to that.
Well, let me just ask you if any of the board members would like to refresh the overview from what we did last month, because not everybody was on the call last month.
That would be nice.
Okay.
You can just do a very brief one.
I can just do a brief one. So we'll start at the top. As you can see, we still have some money in our funds that we had restricted for some activities this year that in 2019 that didn't happen. And so one of them is we still have some money left over from a grant that we got from the Healthcare Authority, and so we're going to reassess the cars that we have because we still have another year left on our lease, but the mileage is huge because of all the work the navigators were doing. We're doing a lot of traveling, and so Carol's been talking to her contact at the Nissan dealership, which is where we got the cars from, and we're kind of trying to put together a plan. We're considering purchasing them, but we don't know yet. So then we move down, you see that we put in here that we're going to be taking the lens funding out of the portal, so there's no dollars assigned for that for 2020. Our sponsorship fund is still being funded for 2020, which was, I think, really successful this year. Payroll, like I said, last year you see what was $1.4 million, which we didn't use all of that. Again, there's an actual column also there that you can see that's as of November 19th, so it's not up to date for today. We decreased the professional services a little bit, and we combined it with another category so that all of our contracts for professional services, our consulting, our IT, our lawyer, everybody's all in one category this year. The rest of these are just our operation expenses that are all based off of actuals. Since we've been in this building for a full month now, we have actuals for our utilities and our rents, and so we base those numbers off of this last month that we've been here. The next section is our website maintenance subscriptions. The subscriptions you'll see went up quite a bit because we're constantly purchasing Tableau, which is a pretty expensive software, but Wes has been doing a lot of work with it and feels like it'd be beneficial for our data that we need for reporting.
Makes things look very good.
Yeah, it's really nice. He's been showing it to us a couple of times. Wes has been doing some data presentations for us and he's been showing it. It's nice. So that's something that could be forthcoming for the year, so we budgeted for it. Everything else kind of stays the same. We bumped down the office supplies. Again, a lot of these numbers are just based on actual. So we budgeted 20 and only used 75, so we brought that down. Our marketing and communications, and then Brian alluded to this a little bit. We talked about this during the finance committee meeting. We bumped that up to $20,000. Lauren's doing a lot of now that we've promoted her marketing manager. We're going to have a sign out there on the street. We're going to have a sign inside. She orders a rug. We're going to have a nice sign on our door, on the glass door, and she's doing a lot of work around creating a new logo and new colors. And, so she's got a lot planned for next year. So we bumped up
her budget a little bit. Carol talked a little bit about the travel expenses. We heard last month that maybe we needed to bump that up, or something that we're talking about later. I think we'll give some more merit to that need. That might be something we need to talk about. Staff training, we left at $35,000. That's professional development money. You all know that about that. We're going to change a little bit about the way that's allocated for 20. Carol and I are working on writing a new policy for that. You guys should see that next month. And then Julie, our new treasurer, helped us align some of our restricted funds and designate them out of designated funds instead of restricted, just based on best practices for training. So we have, and all these are all rollovers from last year. Our behavioral health collaborative money, our cohort 1 loading collaborative money, going over the internship, which Carol is launching that in January, so we'll be getting that money this year in 2020. And then summer grant writer, all that will get spent in 2020.
I guess I have one question. You, on office technology, you spent $23,000 last year.
Yes.
115, is that because it's a equipment purchase?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we purchased 50 laptops this year, so we won't get 10 next year. In 2020, everybody's up to date. I think Wes is the only one that still needs to be updated. He's dragging his feet a little bit.
I'm ready to get a laptop. Only got about 11 days. You're not on Windows 7, so
XP, okay.
Yeah. So
Working his way up to XP.5.
Is there any other questions about the budget for 2020?
I just wanted to make sure I see that, you guys do have some actuals here on, everything from rent, utilities, and kind of settling in here. And you guys have been excellent about pretty much just getting what you need. Is there something you feel like, okay, you don't want to put it out there, it's maybe not a need, it's more of a want? But, I mean, do you really have everything that you need and want to do the great work you guys are doing?
Ooh, it sounds like Santa Claus.
Well,
it's Christmas.
in the spirit of,
I'm coming over to his side.
You look at this budget, and you guys are clearly, as the cost of things are going up, and what I see here is a budget that is coming in under what you've done in the previous year, and so I'm just putting it out there. I just want to make sure that there's not something laying out there that
needs to happen for you guys.
Well, I
for
think we're
the work that you're doing.
We are going to talk a little bit about that later on in the agenda, Eric. We have a couple of proposals to the board that could take care of some of that extra need.
Maybe I should just shut my mouth now.
Oh, no. I mean, is there anything that you see that we need? I mean, we've got beautiful office now.
Well, I've said from the beginning, we got too small of a TV in here.
Yeah, I agree with you.
No, but I mean, when you get into a new space,
One of
whenever
those
you get
lower, projectors that does all the good work for you. You can feed in the data, and then it'll just switch as voice activated.
Wow.
Wasn't Christmas like that?
Like
that.
Yeah. No, I mean that, like, even when you move into a new space, you may like, gosh, this, maybe it's a remodeling thing that you just, like, the space wasn't right. So I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. I mean, I don't spend that
Maybe
much time
artwork on the walls.
One thing we did think about before we moved in here, and it's too late now, was the carpeting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was $25,000, which was pretty, isn't that what the cost was?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Who gave you the quote?
The landlord. She reached out to 3 different contractors and got a quote for it.
That's sort of water under the bridge now, not the cubicles.
Yeah.
If you took the cubicles out, it would be really expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really what we didn't do.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to put it out there.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay, so it sounds like, does anybody else have any additional questions about the proposed budget? Okay, so how about, could we have a motion to approve the proposed budget?
This is Julie, so moved.
Thank you, Julie.
This is Sandra, I'll second.
Thank you, Sandra. And any further discussion? If not, then all in favor of the proposed 2020 budget, say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Then thank you, the budget is approved. So then we're going on to the practice transformation changes.
Oh, okay. No. Are we skipping a few things for that?
We should be doing this.
Oh, okay. So, Elia's not joining us until 2 o'clock. So why don't we go ahead and do the practice transformation toolkit?
Do it. Okay. So we're not doing this one.
So this is Julie Peterson, and speaking of conflicts of interest, I just want to note that I am a member of the Washington Rural Health Collaborative. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the work that the collaborative does, but I will recuse myself from any vote.
Oh, thank you, Julie.
So this is Jenna, looking at the practice transformation kind of crosswalk. I'll kind of orient everybody to this sheet again, because I know it's been a couple of weeks since we've all seen it. So on the far left-hand side, that is the milestone that we'll be reviewing and the question. The next column to the right, the 2019 column, is the milestone and the question as it stands now for this year. The next column was our original change at the first PTW meeting that we had, and then that went through some iterations, and we brought it to the board, and then the board had feedback, and then we kind of came back and started again. And so then the next column, final change post PTW meeting, that is where we landed with the milestones. The PTW actually reviewed this same crosswalk last week, and it passed with flying colors. We were so happy about that. So if you scroll over a little bit, Chelsea, can I get you to hide column L? That is just for CSI, so you don't have to worry about that. And then the last column is explanation, which I'll kind of be doing as we go through it, so we won't focus on that one. But if you scroll all the way back over, that is a document that we'll be going through. So what I'm going to do, I'll do the same thing I did with the practice transformation work group, as long as that's okay with the board. I would like to just go over the ones that we had feedback on. Would you like me to go over all the ones we had feedback on, or just ones from the board that we had feedback on? The board. Okay. So we're just going to go over the ones that the board had feedback on at our last board meeting.
And that we reviewed with the practice.
Yes. And these were reviewed with the practice transformation work group. We had a lot of people in attendance at that meeting, and they agreed with the final changes. So, and I might need this group to help me out, make sure I don't miss one. So the first one that the board, I believe, had some feedback on was milestone 2B1 question 11. And that is identification and outreach of patients to patients lost to follow-up. We had a lot of discussion about no-shows, how that outreach would be performed, whether it would be via letter, via telephone call. We got some feedback that for some of our sites, they have a large amount of no-shows, so a phone call in 3 attempts would be a great deal for the staff. And so where we've landed is that sites will follow up with patients after 1 no-show. Follow-up can be completed via phone call or mailed letter. There should be 3 attempts to contact the patient if follow-up is being done via telephone. And so we wanted to leave the autonomy to the sites to know what's appropriate for a letter versus a phone call. And if you are making a phone call, just following up 3 times. And we clarified in the PTW meeting that the practices will attest that if they did follow up via phone call, that it was done 3 times. So that'll be an attestation, but there will be a data component where you would give us a numerator and denominator. So the denominator would be the number of no-shows, and then the numerator would be the number of contacts or follow-ups that were done either via phone call or letter. So any feedback on that one?
So at the last meeting, one of the issues that we had as a board was that it was after one no-show, because that seems pretty excessive. So was there any discussion on the PTW and as to where that should start?
No, there wasn't, and I know we have a lot of exemplars. I believe even farm workers, if I remember correctly from my time there, after one no-show is auto-generated in the EHR to send a letter.
Right, but there were still some other groups that weren't quite there yet, and there was concern about just the number. That was it's the first no-show versus a second no-show. Everyone has a miss here and there.
There was no comment on that from the PTW.
Okay.
And I just want to add, Sister, in thinking about this today versus last week or last month, there's certain challenges around homelessness versus housed. People that are stably housed, miss appointments, people that are in a homeless situation miss them more often because they don't know where they're going to be on that date, or they lose contact with their phone, they've lost their phone, something was stolen.
Yeah.
So the challenges around that, I think that if there's some kind of a clause where if they're homeless and they can't be contacted by phone or letter, do we just exempt them from services to be walk-ins versus?
So we're not getting into the level of detail. That's a site organization-specific thing, whatever measure they want to take after a no-show.
We're not understanding something.
What we're just trying to see is we're trying to make sure patients don't fall through the gap. So that's the intent behind this one. So
and that's the key. That's the piece that where they do fall through the cracks, is the homelessness.
Ronnie, this is Rhonda, and I would just say that we as the healthcare for the homeless provider, we don't try any less hard to follow up with our homeless patients than we do anybody else, and so this standard works for us.
Right.
Because for the
some of the challenges,
they're usually provided a PO box, and oftentimes it's us. It's the healthcare for the homeless provider that is their mail drop. So I think this still works for those providers as well.
So often, Cadillac Clinic and GCACH, not to be like pointing fingers or anything, it becomes a walk-in basis, wait all day, see if you can see a provider if they miss three appointments.
Right.
So that's
a different issue, though.
Yeah.
It's really not a follow-up.
Hi, this is Deborah from Cadillac.
Hey, Deborah.
Hi. So in regards to the no-shows, it's 3 no-shows within 1 calendar year, and we always send out a letter. But if they're dismissed, they're just dismissed from one practice. They can definitely establish with a different provider if they'd like.
Okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So,
can I just clarify, your denominator is no-shows and your numerator is the contacts with each of the no-shows or each attempt to contact?
The contact with each of the no-shows.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more feedback on that one?
And then just to add to that, a letter does have to go out. If the letter comes back as undeliverable, we don't count that as a no-show.
Okay. Let's keep going.
Okay, so the next one that we had some feedback on at our last board meeting was milestone 2B2 question 5, and that was around the PAM. So originally, y'all remember we were trying to just add some language that made it mandatory. If an organization was a health home, they would do the PAM. We ratcheted that back, and we landed at making referrals to the health home. At our last board meeting, the board kind of informed us and educated us that just because a patient is referred to a health home doesn't mean they will get into a health home. So what we did was we added a selection for initiated process for referral to health homes. I believe the feedback from the board was to update the language to reflect that it is not a guarantee that if you refer to a health home that you will get in. So I think that's where we've landed here. Initiated process for referral to health homes. Any feedback?
No feedback, but going back early in the agenda when I think it was Diane that was presenting possible learning collaborative topics for 2020. At the last board meeting, we talked about how we really needed to expand our provider base for health home providers. Could that maybe be a topic for a learning collaborative? Would be a topic around trying to get more providers interested in being health home providers?
That's a great idea.
Okay.
Just wrote that down. Okay. So I think our next one that we had a lot of feedback on from the board was, let me keep reviewing. Surveys. We had a lot of talk about surveys. So milestone 4A1, patient experience, patient-centered interactions, question 1. Chelsea, can you scroll to that one?
Which one was it?
4A1, patient experience.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So this one, we had a grand discussion on surveys and the ability to kind of control the response rate, and how that was not an ability of the sites to do that. It's not in your control, the response rate that you get. And so we really took that feedback back, and where we landed was each quarter, the sites will be expected to show an increase in the percentage of patients that received surveys. And so I've actually gotten a chance to talk to some sites about this, Lords in particular, and they were very excited about how the measure had landed, what we were thinking, because they're interested in making sure during front office check-in that they're collecting emails and phone numbers for text features and patient portal information. So they thought that that was a very good measure that would help drive some of their outcomes, and the PTW had no feedback, which means they liked it.
It is really good.
So any feedback from the board?
I can tell you that the texts work because I get texts from Lords. I get texts from Trios now because they're under Lords. I also get, and that's to do the little online surveys. I also get texts coming in for my appointment setting. So I'm reminded. That's the only thing about, and when I talk about the homeless sector, it becomes really difficult because I have folks that are in relationships with the clinic, and they lose their phone if it's set out, because my next appointment isn't until March, and here we're in December. I can't get in until then because they're so inundated. If their appointment is set out in March and they don't have that same phone because of theft, loss, whatever the case is, they're not going to be reminded about that appointment. They're not going to remember that appointment because they're not keeping a calendar in their pocket. But all of them are going to get the same kind of reminders. Hey, can you do this for your appointment? You have to get your blood drawn and stuff like that, right? But the other piece is that when they're doing those surveys, you just click and you're at the survey site and it's done. So I really appreciate that, and especially if it's a doctor that I really like.
Okay. Any other feedback on patient-centered interactions for surveys? Hearing none, we'll move on. And I think the last one that the board had feedback on was milestone 6, A1, question 4. And so this one was the big one.
Yeah.
And what the feedback the board had was that requiring to upload data from collective medical would not be an easy task, that there was issues with the 10, I believe, Rhonda, you called it, tax identifier number that might have been giving some discrepancies in collective medical, so that upload that we originally asked for might not have been the best idea. So we took that one out, and what we did was we just landed on still separating the options out. So all 3 selections will be mandatory, so they're moving from being called options to being called selections. And we separated those by clinic and by hospital. And so the clinic will be responsible for doing ED follow-up within 1 week of ED discharge, and they will be required to show an increase in the percentage of patients that received an ED follow-up call. And we left that kind of caveat at the end with an ultimate goal of achieving 95%. In order to complete the milestone, all they need to do is show an increased percentage. So we gave this example at the PTW. If you started with 25% in quarter 1 and you get 26% in quarter 2, you have achieved the milestone. And so we just wanted to make sure that that was understood by the group, and they really appreciated it. For the hospitals, we definitely took the feedback from our original meeting and kept that it would be appropriate for the hospitals to identify patients without a primary care provider and make a referral. We yet again explained to the PTW last week that we left that vague on purpose, just so they could have autonomy in how they're going to give a referral. For selection B, follow-up contact within 72 hours of inpatient discharge, we have the same percentage criteria. Each quarter, the sites will be expected to show an increase in the percentage of patients that received an inpatient follow-up call with an ultimate goal of achieving 95%. So we're just looking for progress in the second year. And then for the hospitals, they'll be doing the exact same thing. So identifying patients without a PCP and making a referral. And selection C has not changed and probably will not change. Enact care compacts and collaborative agreements with at least 2 groups of high-volume specialists. We pointed out in the PCW last week that this was a recommendation from Adam Falcone during his contract negotiation education seminar we just had, that having collaborative agreements and co-location and all those kind of things greatly benefit sites when it comes to value-based purchasing. So that was the last one that we had. Any feedback? Hearing none.
This is one of those things that you shoot the best you can and see how it turns out, and then you have to adjust as you go.
Oh yeah, this is version 6. Yes.
Hey, this is Jorge. That's my other comment. Is you guys have worked a long time on this, and you have very good control of these. So at this point, it's hard to say anything else. That keep going, and you're doing the right thing. And if something gets a little tweaked down the road, it's okay.
Mhm. Okay. So, does anybody have any questions about the milestones as they have been modified and adjusted through the work of the Practice Transformation Work Group? And then this is the second iteration in front of the board, I believe. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this?
This is Madeline. I will move to approve the 2020 Practice Transformation reporting update for year 2.
Eric will second.
Thank you. So now we'll all know who to blame. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to talk
If
about
not,
that.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? If not, then it's approved. Thank you very much. So just logistically, Sam and Jenna and Martine, will you be getting the cohorts together to review all of this, or how will you roll this out?
I don't know if we've come up with a final plan. I've had some ideas about when we do our monthly site visits, going over that, maybe doing like a WebEx with all of them to just talk about it at one time so they all hear the same thing. But we're just very glad that it was approved.
Okay. All right. Well, we will look forward to that then. Okay. So let's see. Are we ready to talk about the rural health grant, Carol?
I think Elio is going to join us at 2 o'clock, so with the chair's permission, perhaps we could talk about the backstop funding for permanent supportive housing.
Okay, I just saw the announcement come through from the Department of Commerce about that project today.
Yeah, $2 million. So, Jonathan, are you on the?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can. So I will, Jonathan, I'll just take the board of directors through the SBAR, and then I'm sure that they might have questions that will be channeled to you since you're the expert on the line. But Jonathan Millihan is from Catholic Charities of Eastern Washington. He's really the project manager for Pasco Haven. And in front of the board today is hopefully to get your approval to use $50,000 as backstop funding guarantee for the Pasco Haven permanent supportive housing project. So as you recall, we have been talking about permanent supportive housing in the Tri-Cities area for quite some time. And Lord's network came to Greater Columbia ACH in February of last year because they knew that they were losing their trailers, which provided supportive housing for some of their most severe and persistent chronically mentally ill patients. So they were asking Greater Columbia to convene the community to come up with some solutions to a possible piece of housing that could be built for in place of that, of the mobile trailers. So we held a summit in March of last year. We had a great turnout. There were about 91 people from a variety of different organizations. You can see that they're listed on the SBAR. And from that steering committee, then we have been meeting to explore the possibility of Catholic Charities of Eastern Washington to become the developer of that project, of which they have stepped up to the plate and actually applied to the city of Pasco for a housing site. The bottom line is that in order to make their application competitive, they need some backstop funding. They have spoken to a number of possibilities, including Shalom Ecumenical, who has also offered a guarantee of $50,000. They've spoken to the Blue Mountain Council Veterans Association to do some BASH vouchers, and they're getting some ALTA vouchers from the state of Washington. So they've put together a very competitive process, but in order to kind of hit over the mark, they would like to show another investor in their application. And Greater Columbia ACH staff is proposing that we use $50,000 as backstop funding guarantee from our contingency fund. And that would come out of the district contingency fund. And so in a nutshell, it would not necessarily cost Greater Columbia ACH funding, but it would be used as kind of a co-signer on a loan, like you co-sign for your kid's mortgage. Hopefully that funding would not have to be accessed. And in reality, in terms of subsidizing the rental units, I think that Catholic Charities would step up to the plate if there needed to be any rental unit subsidized. And then Benton Franklin Human Services has pretty much guaranteed that all of those units will be taken either through their continuum of care process or through other requests. We're also working with Cadillac Hospital that might be interested in purchasing a couple of units. Other than that, Jonathan, I'm going to let you fill in all the blank spaces that I neglected to talk about.
So, Carol, so that I don't give folks information they don't want, are there any particular areas you want me to cover there on operating or development funding?
Maybe you can describe how you put the financing package together, Jonathan, and the different sources of funding that you're using.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a model of development and a capital stack that Catholic Charities has a lot of experience with. This will be our sixth building of this type, and we do operate 27 affordable housing projects with 1,300 units across Eastern Washington. We've done over 10 tax credit funded projects, 4 in the last year alone. So this is something that we do have a substantial amount of development experience with. The model for these buildings are to apply for 9% low-income housing tax credits. If you're unfamiliar with that program, at a very high level, it was a program that was established in the 1986 Tax Reform Act. It allows the IRS to allocate tax credits out to all the states according to their population. Those states choose how they allocate them in favor of affordable housing. Catholic Charities applies to the state for those dollars. When we receive an allocation of tax credits, we then turn around and sell them to large syndicators like Wells Fargo or Boston Capital, Bank of America, or U.S. Bank. Those syndicators then sell those to their investors, and in return, they get a tax break. So if you buy $1 of 9% tax credits, you receive $1.09 return for 10 years after you buy it. So the way that works is the investor gives us the equity for our projects. We return to them a tax break for their investment. We also then apply for housing trust fund dollars, which is really soft debt from the state. That allows for us to have no hard debt on these properties. And that means that we can afford to operate them with a really tight budget and make the units incredibly affordable. So they serve people who have 30% or less of the area median income. We make sure that we prioritize those for individuals who are chronically homeless, which means that they have a disability and they've been homeless for over 12 months or multiple times over the last 3 years. What we do to make sure that we are appropriately staffed and able to support those individuals with high needs is that we build a bunch of commercial space on the first floor where we have behavioral health services, we have access to primary health care, we have peer supports who are people who have experienced homelessness and are able to help make trusting relationships with our residents. We have access to Catholic Charities counseling program, and we have property managers and maintenance staff that keep the building in safe, clean condition for the residents to enjoy. We're able to do this with subsidies from third parties like the local housing authority, in this case from the state through their ALTSA program, and we do anticipate having some vouchers from the housing authority, maybe 5 or 6. Additionally, we'll get 34 units subsidized through the continuum of care, and as Carol mentioned, some subsidies from some third parties that Carol's been working really hard to identify for us. So we're so appreciative of the partnership so far with Greater Columbia. The long and the short of it is we have opened buildings before that don't have project-based subsidies on all the units. And what ends up happening is third parties step in through project-based vouchers or other applications to fill that operating gap because there's such a demand for this service. However, given that, the underwriters at the banks, when we go to get investors, they can't underwrite revenue that hasn't been identified. So they ask us to bring in guarantees, and in this case, guarantees from third parties are more valuable than guarantees from Catholic Charities. They ask us to bring in those guarantees, and that allows for them to pay a higher price for the tax credits that they're buying. And so that means if without guarantees, we might sell tax credits for somewhere between 90 and 93 cents. With guarantees, we sell tax credits in this market for close to 97 cents to the dollar. That's a $600,000 to $900,000 difference in our development budget, and that it makes the world of difference when it comes to building the right amenities and spaces for the residents. So we really appreciate even considering this guarantee. Carol's right that although the guarantee could be called on, it is Catholic Charities' intent not to call on that guarantee except in the event of a catastrophe. However, if you do want to make this guarantee, you would be underwritten by the syndicators or our investor that we would end up choosing, and they would really evaluate the risks of the project, including, the finances of GCACH. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that's a lot of information. I think this is a low risk situation. However, it's not no risk.
So I have two questions. One, this is Eric. So is the backstop for the initial infrastructure being built, or is it for ongoing if vouchers aren't?
Backstop is
Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, the backstop would be for the operating budget of the project, and we're respectfully requesting that you consider. And Carol, I think we talked about the time frame here. Did you land on the request time frame to be 15 years, or what? Remind me of what your thought was there.
Well, I think we talked about the fact that it would look more attractive if it was for the 15 years. Jonathan, but I didn't put anything in today as far about that.
Okay.
It's really a board decision.
Yeah, so we would respectfully request a 15-year commitment, understanding that it's hard to look 15 years out for your organization. The reason for the 15 years is that's the lifetime of the tax credit partnership, and with the 15 years, that's what really makes it have that impact on the underwriter's assessment of what the value of the tax credits are.
So, Jonathan, this is Rhonda from Yakima. So, are you? Do you see this as a reserve? Would this be like an operational reserve? I'm not quite sure how you're kind of seeing this, or as an owner equity amount that is there to really show the bankers.
Yeah, good question. This is completely unique to what we've ever done before. It's a new approach for gaining investor confidence in the project. We do not see these dollars as an asset of the project. They would be maintained as GCACH assets. They would be encumbered in a sense, but the underwriters would not require that GCACH become a special member of the project. They would just want to see an agreement between Catholic Charities and your organization for that backstop guarantee.
So basically, we would set these aside in a restricted funds to hold for you.
Yes, and our understanding is you could still invest them in a secure investment vehicle.
Yeah.
And Rhonda, we're suggesting that it would be restricted in our contingency reserve in our district budget.
So our district budget has a line item actually placed for this $50,000, right?
Okay, other questions?
Jonathan, just to be clear, okay, because I'm thinking I understand it because I've seen it before in different areas. This money is so that you can get the loans to start your project. Backstop money is on paper, it's a held amount, and because it's a group of people that are coming to support the project with the money as backstop money, the bank lenders will help you get started with the project. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct, with the exception that the bank is not making a loan; they're making an equity investment. So they're buying tax credits from us, and this increases the value of the tax credits.
Gotcha. And are we keeping this on a local level versus HUD, like Housing First program vouchers?
Well, we will use the coordinated intake system for the voucher or for the units that are supported by the COC. However, vouchers that are supported by ALSA or another third party, we can have a separate tenant selection plan for those units. And so, for other medical organizations to provide support for the project, we're working on avenues for them to refer their most medically fragile people into the building so that they can see a improvement in wellness for those individuals and a benefit to their cost for serving those individuals.
Okay, and how many units are going to be set aside for homeless, VA, and for aging, blind, and disabled that are not homeless?
Yeah, so 50% of the units are set aside for people who have experienced chronic homelessness. 6 of the units will be set aside for people with disabilities. The remaining units currently have no restrictions beyond income restrictions, and generally the income restrictions are going to be that they earn less than 30% or 50% of AMI, depending on the unit.
So there's not going to be what is it? So it's all going to be 30% or less, and it's not going to be for the value of the property itself, where you would rent to normal renters who would have the ability to pay. I can't think of the name of it.
There won't be any market rate.
Yeah, that's it.
Units in this building. I mean, there will be units that don't have at this point, we expect there will be units that don't have a formal subsidy. However, people will come in with tenant-based vouchers, and that will serve as the subsidy.
Right. And how many were you saying you're looking at opening? 52 units? Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, Jonathan.
I have a question for Julie. Are you still on the call?
She had to step out for just a minute. She'll be right back.
Oh. Okay, so I have a call for Brian. Maybe you know this, but I guess my call is more from a fiduciary standpoint. A 15-year commitment. Do we have any liability for a 15-year commitment for an organization that we don't really know if we're going to be around for 15 years?
Yeah,
Does anybody know the answer to that?
I do not know the answer to that. Rhonda.
This is Madeline. When you set aside and you put it in as board restricted funds, then those funds would not, you would need to actually disperse it. So if we close down, those funds would have to be held in escrow for that reason.
Okay, so that they still could be there.
Yes.
So it would be like a public account.
Okay, well that answers that.
How much is it?
50,000.
50.
Okay.
Okay, are there other questions that people would like to ask? Or Jonathan, is there any other additional information you think would be helpful for us to know?
No, I think I've given you all you need to know, and I'm happy to jump off the line here while you discuss it.
You know, we still have over $1 million in contingency funds, so it's not like it's pretty hard.
Okay, well, if we don't have any further questions for Jonathan, then why don't we excuse him, and then the board can deliberate on this. Thank you for jumping on the call and answering our questions.
Thank you so much. Thanks for considering this support.
Okay.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so Carol, anything else that you want to add to this?
I did. I just wanted to let the board know that there's a special use permit hearing that will be January 8th with the city of Pasco. From all intents and purposes, it looks like that special use permit hearing is a go. Jonathan has had very, very few questions from the city of Pasco. We've supplied the city of Pasco with our Department of Commerce grant application that staff wrote. Unfortunately, we did not get that grant from the Department of Commerce. That would have really helped with the operational expenses. But as a result of the summit, we have put together a flyer that we're taking around to the downtown business owners to explain the project to them. We've heard some concern from the downtown business owners that this is a project that might impact their business, but just looking at the flyer, I think that they don't realize how far away it actually is from the downtown. And there's some work that Greater Columbia is doing right now to work with other downtown business owners. But the special use permit hearing is a hearings examiner that's based on the law, and so we're very certain that the project will pass, and we're doing everything that we can to work with, our stakeholders to get support for the project. We did a survey following our summit last year, and there was overwhelming support for this project. So we think we'll have a good turnout at the special use permit hearing. And the fact that Catholic Charities received a housing grant today for about $2 million, we're very excited about that. So it seems like it really happened.
What's across the street building?
Heritage and
I think it's near.
I would just add there isn't a permanent supportive housing project in the state that hasn't had resistance when it started. So, welcome to the club.
Exactly.
So, do people feel like they have enough information to be able to vote on this?
Hang on a second. How far away are the amenities? Is that something that I'm concerned with, and I just want to know? And it doesn't matter because I'm going to vote yes on this.
So originally, Ronnie, they had wanted to locate the permanent supportive housing project closer to the downtown, but the property owner did not want to sell them, and so they've had to look for alternative sites. So this is further away from services, which is one of the disadvantages.
How far away though? Is it a mile? Is it 2 miles? What is it? You have to take a car ride. You have to take 3 buses and transfer.
So here's 4th Street right here.
Okay.
And I think this is the railroad track. Lewis is right here. So 4th Street is probably along here. So 4th and Court, which is kind of at the heart of.
Right. So it's going over the track, and it's going to the east of Pasco.
Yeah.
It's way out by Highway 12.
Okay, so that's going to be a distance. Yeah, that's going to be
housing area.
Yeah, but there's no close grocery store to walk to.
That's an area that is getting a little more attention now because of needing to get services out there. So, so there is some going into that direction.
Right, there is.
And services. So,
but mostly mini markets.
But I was just talking about other community activities that are out there.
So.
21st century.
So when it's low income, you're talking about people that will end up having to mostly walk to get their groceries and to any kind of amenities. So the cost of living is going to go up for them. Even though they're in affordable housing, they're still going to have a greater cost because they're going to go to the mini markets instead of walking.
Yeah, and sort of food.
I'd hate to interrupt, but I think those are good conversations, but probably that's a project conversation, and I'm being mindful of what our role here is. And I'd like to move the board conversation along, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, Rhonda. I was just trying to kind of think about some other things out there that I'm working on outside of
Understood. I just want to make sure we get through the board business before our time is up here. So, relative to the S-bar that we've reviewed, and whether or not the board wants to commit $50,000 in restricted fund to hold for this, again, do people feel they have enough information to make a decision about this?
Yes. This is Madeline, and I would approve $50,000 for the backstop funding for the Pasco Haven Permanent Supportive Housing Project.
And that's Ronnie Batchelor, and I'm seconding that.
Thank you.
Sandra, I have a question. Is that for the 15 years?
Yes.
Yes, that it would be put into a restricted fund for 15 years. So and Madeline, would you be okay with amending your amendment to include that, or your motion to amend that?
Yes.
Okay.
The funds would be put into a board designated restricted 15-year fund account.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you
so
for that.
second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Nice work putting together the SBAR, Carol.
Great.
This is the most wonderful Christmas present anybody ever given me. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
This is exciting.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
We gifted this for budget. I don't know if they want to go back to that.
Is Elia on the line yet?
Hi, yes, this is Elia. I'm on the line.
Hi, Elia.
Hey, Elia.
So, but I think we could go to the next SBAR, and this is the approval to contract with the Rural Health Collaborative, and as Julie stated, she's on the board, so she's going to theme and probably answer questions. So unfortunately, the board received this just today. This is a new opportunity. I'm going to just follow the SBAR. So really, I was contacted by Elia Patowski, who's the new executive director for the Washington Rural Health Collaborative, and I have known Elia since 2017 when we started down the Medicaid Transformation Project road. So Elia and I have had a relationship through the ACHs. Elia has since left OCH and is now the executive director of Washington Rural Health Collaborative. And they had this opportunity for a grant that they pursued, a HRSA quality grant. And when Elia saw the scope of work, she contacted several contractors to check out who might be qualified to do the kind of quality improvement work that is being proposed in the contract. I'm looking for my SBAR. Thank you. So the scope of work includes really everything that our practice transformation navigators are doing, except that it's somewhat scaled down to focus on fewer benchmarks. The scope of work includes providing technical assistance in the areas of healthcare quality improvement, including behavioral health screening and treatment and chronic disease management to 11 member sites. The navigators assist participating sites to achieve and report out grant-specific metric benchmarks. They would co-develop a project team charter with the steering committee and manage to project-specific goals. And Sam Ordell has confirmed that our practice transformation implementation workbook, our PTIW, could satisfy that particular scope. And then provide a shared learning solution to support grant-specific quality improvement efforts across participating member sites. We would also be expected to participate in the HRSA calls that are monthly and provide monthly status reports to the steering committee of progress towards grant objectives, and then hold weekly phone call with the collaborative project director. It is really in our wheelhouse that the practice transformation team is already doing. These words probably sound very familiar to you because it really follows the framework of patient-centered medical home. And so for our assessment portion of the SBAR, we also brought out the fact that we were already planning on hiring another navigator mid-year. This would require us to hire that navigator earlier, so that's why we put it in our operating budget to have a full-time navigator beginning as soon as possible. And looking at the travel expenses, we realized that some of these sites are pretty far away. Some are in remote places of Washington, like Fort. And so we would have to increase our travel budget to accommodate that. We would be using our more experienced navigators for this work, so it would be up to them to delegate to Martine and Jenna what sites that they wanted to work with. And then finally, it's really this opportunity that the board of directors kind of landed on in our retreat last April, where you encouraged the Greater Columbia to become a center of excellence and look outside our own region to find work that was very consistent with what we're already doing. So it's one of those opportunities that's just been very fortunate that's landed in that. It might cost us a little bit of money, that is in the world of business that takes money to make money. So we're willing to expend a little bit more funding in order to pursue this grant opportunity. And then quite honestly, I know Elia, and she is an amazing leader, and I think that together we could learn a lot about the rural health system, and we can apply a lot of our knowledge to them and then learn a lot from the Rural Health Collaborative and fold that into what Greater Columbia is currently doing. So we see it as a kind of some bragging rights that we were right up there being considered along with CoImagine, the Breed Collaborative, the AIM Center, and Health Check S3. So we're very flattered to be offered this opportunity to vie for the contract, and so we're just asking permission from the board and approval from the board to do this work.
Is this an expense or a revenue?
Well, it's a bit of both.
So that's what I just was.
Yeah.
I read through the whole thing a couple times and I'm not clear.
So it's a $36,000 grant, but when you look at the cost of delivering the services, it's probably about equal amount in expense.
So we would be getting a revenue of $36,000, but we would be matching it for our learning experience and our exposure and our.
It's an investment in
I understand. I wanted to know how much and where the money was coming from.
And then, Elia, I would just like for you to fill in any of the gaps and the highlights that I've missed.
Yeah, sure. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Elia Prostowski. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington Rural Health Collaborative. And I know some of you, and I know my incoming board president is also on your board. So this may be repetitive for some of you. We're a 15-member critical access rural network that spans, as you could see by the list of locations, the far east side of the state, the far west side of the state, the south side of the state, and we do go as far north as Whidbey, although I don't think that they are participating on this particular grant opportunity. And I just wanted to speak to Carol's comment about that the SBAR got to you late. Carol and I only met on Monday, so I'm impressed that all of this legwork has already been done, and am over the moon at the opportunity to work with the ACHs and try to scale what Greater Columbia has done to the partners that are in your region, to all or most of the members in my collaborative, knowing that I'm familiar with all the work the ACHs are doing across the state around practice transformation, and have been most impressed with the commitment to PCMH that has taken place within Greater Columbia. And when I looked at the HRSA quality grant that we received, it was so aligned. It just seemed like a really good marriage. And while this is exploratory for Greater Columbia, and I really appreciate the budgeting, it's also exploratory for the collaborative. And this would be an entree into potentially a strategic partnership with an ACH moving forward as the MTP, the Medicaid Transformation Project, sunsets in the end of 2021. Thank you, Carol.
Thanks, Elia.
Okay, well, that was a great summary. And thank you, Elia, for joining us. So what questions do the boards have? Does the board have? This certainly feels, it looks like it aligns well with the PCMH work that we are doing. Carol, is there anything that seems astray from the current work that we're doing? At face value, it looks like it's very much aligned with what we're already doing.
I'll let Sam speak to that. What do you think, Sam?
I think the work itself is definitely in line with the current work that we're doing and the expertise that the practice navigators bring to the table. I think that having Elia on board and already having a relationship with these organizations is going to be valuable for our commitment to these organizations. So that would be the only concern that I would have going in, is that having the support of the other ACHs as well as the support of Elia and her team in order for us to be successful.
And then the only other question that I had is looking at the budget for the long distance. Have you identified lodging costs for that? Okay.
No. So I think, Madeline, to your concern, logically speaking, I don't think that we would make individual trips to all of these remote locations. I think logically we would probably fly somebody over there, they would rent a car and then make site visits. So I think that the mileage probably approximates the amount of dollars in terms of lodging that would be needed to fund or to house people, because I just can't imagine sending Jenna over to Whidbey Island and her coming back the same day. I think it would probably be a plan. So this is hastily put together to try to give us some sense of what those transportation costs might look like. It certainly is not refined, but I don't think it's going to be more than that. And if it is, then we will bring it back to the board if we need further.
So this is Rhonda again. I'm sorry. I'd like to have Sam clarify something. Sam, your comments to me sounded like an advantage more than a concern in terms of the alignment of the work. And so could you just restate what you said? Because I think I must have misheard it.
I definitely think it's an advantage for us aligned in that we have expertise around that, and then practice navigators are constantly learning. And, one of the expertise that we do have is rural. And so that was one of the things that Elia highlighted, is that she thought out of all of the other candidates that we would be the best aligned for rural areas and being able to be successful to come into these organizations and be able to really align our efforts with their efforts. And the majority of these entities are small organizations and very rural. So I definitely think it's an advantage, and it's a great opportunity for us to put our footprint down.
Thank you. And I think I interrupted Jorge, maybe.
No, it was Eric. I was just verifying. I mean, this is obviously on the other side of the state, and did I miss something in here? Were the other ACHs given an opportunity and they didn't want, or are we stepping into other people's backyards? And
so this is Elia again, and I will say that the only ACH that I have reached out to every executive director of every ACH where we have membership to notify them of this award and to try to avoid duplication and enhance alignment, and they've been very open and welcome to that. The only ACH that I've invited to apply for this opportunity is Greater Columbia ACH, and that is because of the alignment of the PCMHA tool and the existence of the CSI platform that you all use. So hopefully that answers your question, Jorge.
And again, that was Eric. This is Jorge. This is Jorge. That was Eric. Elia, it's great to hear your voice again.
Hi, Jorge.
How are you? I just want to say, since because of the work we NCOs do across the state, we understand that this work is very much aligned with the work that Greater Columbia does, and everybody has a little bit of practice transformation in their MDPs, but nobody's doing it in a way that Greater Columbia is doing it. I work a lot in the Olympic Peninsula, where I was the director before. I can say that there should not be any opposition of any of the other ACHs, because it's not every ACH, only the ones who have their membership of Elliot's organization there. So I don't see a conflict in the alignment.
May I, this is
Sandra, go ahead, Brian.
Real quick, thank you. These additional, the other subcontractors that were approached, is this well, I don't understand that. Is it you've approached a handful of other folks and you're going to pick one, or can you explain that to me a little bit?
Yes, of course. So as it is a federal grant from HRSA, we have found, kind of created a list of potential vendors and have spoken with each of them. Two that we know of are submitting a proposal, one which we hope is Greater Columbia, and then the other which we hope is Co-Imagine.
I understand. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
This is Sandra. I just had a question about how we got to the $36,000 and what flexibility there is to cover some of these other costs, because I'm a bit concerned about taking some of our money out of our region, and it just comes down to a dollars thing and where the money should be spent for me.
Cheryl, is that from you or for me, do you think?
I think it's for you.
Okay. So the $36,000 number comes from our budget from the HRSA grant that we submitted back in January, when we thought we were going to go with a different vendor that we have since found out that wasn't a really good fit for what we were wanting to do. So we spoke with our HRSA loan officer or grant officer to ask about a budget change, and they said that would be possible, but would be very challenging to do for this upcoming year. So we're kind of stuck with the 36 for this year, but we would be happy to look at budget amendments in 2021.
So I guess then is that 36 under a contractor line item, or is there an equipment line item or a line item where, for example, the portal is one of the, as I look at the work that Carol has done and put together, the portal is one of those big costs. Is there a budget line item that would fall into that's outside of the 36,000?
So the 36,000 is bundled for all of it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Does the grant pay the providers, incentivize the providers to do the work, or how are the providers going to want to do the work?
Did you hear that question, Elia?
I did. We are not, the collaborative did not build into its budget a fee to pay participating sites. So our sites will not reap the benefits that the Greater Columbia sites did, Prosser and Kittitas, for participation. They are doing this more just to get ready for value-based contracts and potential ACO models.
So this is Ronnie. I remember having the board meeting where we had someone come in and we talked about transitioning the GCACH into an entity of itself beyond the transformation years. And we did talk about this part of reaching out, finding out what that could look like after the transformation. And I think that in my mind's eye, this is what we're doing right now, as we're trying to leverage on that meeting and trying to get in place some work-related things that are going to benefit the Center of Excellence to move them forward after the transformation. So I want to say that the opportunity seems like it's really a good opportunity, and I think that when we're talking about outside our region, it's not outside of what our actual meeting was back then, and how they're going to foundationally move forward.
So the question was raised by someone about how we have collected funds specifically for our specific region. How does using some of those funds outside of our region? I'm just asking because it was asked and probably should be stated somewhere.
So the question is, are we allowed to use these funds outside our region? Is that the question?
Yeah, or how does it all fit together?
I think from talking to Sam, it really is an opportunity to grow our own expertise within practice transformation. So it's not just benefiting the providers that will serve outside of Greater Columbia. It's actually going to be brought into there with all of the providers that we're currently working with. And I think just getting a better understanding of the need for rural health beyond what we're doing right now is valuable in and of itself. We've earned the funds, so it's not a question of whether or not we're legally obliged to keep those funds within our region. So we have the authority and the ability to do that. I think that there's just more benefits that you can easily quantify on a piece of paper. And I think that the expenses, again, we put together something that was reasonable. We kind of think that we're overestimating the CSI cost. We don't think that it's necessarily cost $16,000, but we haven't had a chance to talk to CSI. We will be talking to them tomorrow about the cost. But otherwise, the biggest costs are maybe the travel and transportation, and that is something that we can help control.
And staff.
And the staff, and that's somebody that we'd already planned on bringing up anyway, so it's kind of a lot.
So then the next thing is, it sounds like this is where we're making this as a proposal, and this is not a done deal until they have reviewed potentially another proposal. So we're approving throwing our hat in to work with this. All right.
This is Sam. Can I ask the practice navigators, as they were in the initial discussions of just showing what we're doing in the Greater Columbia region for the ACH, can I ask them at this point in the endeavor how that they feel about the work moving forward if we were chosen?
This is Jenna, and I think if we were chosen, it would be really exciting and an opportunity for us to just learn more and to put our skills to use. And I think it would be a great testament to us without the incentive of dollars to achieve milestones, to really just kind of explain the benefit of value-based purchasing and the value in that, and then being able to come alongside sites and have them do process improvement and quality improvement without that necessarily carrot, which I think we're capable of doing. It's just going to be really fun to do. So.
This is Martina. I ditto what Jenna said. The work that we're doing right now, during our call, we discussed it with Elia. And, doing the PCMHA, MIHAP, this is things that they are, we discussed, and Jenna, ran them through our process of, when we do PCMH, when we do MIHAP, what we do with those assessments, the whole process of the PTW, creating the document. But I mean, for us, it would be great as a learning opportunity and grow and expand, as an ACH, as a company. So, I mean, this work, to me, it's exciting. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. But I mean, to me, it's a good opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, there it is.
Well, this is Eric. I'll just say one last thing. One is that we said some time ago when we met thinking about the future of GCACH that one of the things they were going to need to do is to brand themselves to make themselves attractive to be not only experts in what they do, but to be people that other people want to work with to expand their own capabilities. And in the big scheme of things, and I get, Sandra, the dollars maybe go into the Olympic Peninsula a little bit, but we're talking about less than a tenth of a percent of the total money that we work with, right? So this is cheap, and it's very valuable to you guys in your future. So I'm all in.
I'm okay spending money to make money and to build the brand. I just would like for us to make sure that we are cognizant of the fact that that's what's happening, and also have a plan, a more of a structured business plan for doing so. So this is a great opportunity that happened last minute. I understand that, but I think it should also encourage us to bring back that sustainability planning and discussion, because in order for what we discussed in that last sustainability meeting to really be effective, we will have to have contracts and agreements in place that are sustainable and do cover costs. That's my only reason for bringing it up, is that we probably need to bring that back around again and spend some time discussing that sustainability and use this as an opportunity to discuss what the opportunities do look like as we see them so far.
When is the cutoff date? How long do you have to make those decisions?
Elia, what's the
Yes,
cutoff?
hi, yes. This is Elia. So we're anxious to get started. We got this award in July, and just for some context, I started here at the collaborative in October. So it's been put on hold. So, there's the danger with HRSA of asking for a delay. That said, I understand that these are deep questions that your board is dealing with, and we'd be open to letting you, deliberate 1 month or 2 months. But as far as we're concerned, sooner is better than later. We were hoping to move forward and execute a contract with the successful bidder in January.
Okay, well, I think you've given us you've given us good information, both you and Carol. So let us have the board deliberate on this now, and hopefully Carol will be able to get back to you by the end of the board meeting, after the end of the board meeting. Is there any other piece of information you think that would be helpful for the board to hear before you leave us?
The only thing that I'd like to say that I haven't said is just a feeling of reciprocity that Carol mentioned about the philosophy between our two organizations, and the longstanding trust, not just between me and Carol, but between me and some of Carol's senior leadership. That makes this, I think, a mutually comfortable situation to enter into.
Sure.
And with that, I'm going to hop off, and hopefully Carol will hear from me soon.
All right. Thank you, Elia, for joining us.
Thank you, Elia.
All right. Okay, so with that, does anybody have any concerns about moving forward?
Do not.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
I will make a motion.
I'd like to say something first. This is Les.
Okay, Les.
If we're going to make a motion, I think it should include how much we would like the ACH. So it would be enter into, to proceed with this agreement, capping this expense at $35,000 out of our pockets, and without further discussion, something that it puts a limit on both sides. They're going to do this much, we'll do this much, and at some point, if we need to do different, we would come back. In other words, we would authorize ACH to spend a certain amount of money, as opposed to just say, oh yeah, we can get this. I think that's what would be needed to alter your budget and do the whole thing, wouldn't it? Don't you need an expense concept on that, or no?
Well,
or is it already there?
I think it's already there. I don't know if you want to speak to that, but if you look at the budget, we have the 42,000 navigators spending half of the time on this project, and we've already budgeted for a full-time navigator and operations expenses. We already have the travel expenses in there. The only addition that I see on here really is the addition to the CSI portal, and we really don't know what that's going to be yet. Actually, we didn't add in the annual cost for operations budget, so we would need to.
There would be a little bit of a revision. So I just didn't know to make what kind of a package would be put together to make a motion that would allow you to come forward there. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, just say that we need more money than people.
Capacity. I would want capacity for more.
And that's if I can spend it. You're looking to go 4 times to do site visits.
To each site.
And I don't know the length of the visit, that just the travel I would want you to be able to have the funds available to be able to do it well.
Sam, do you want to explain how you came up with the travel budget?
Yes, I did. I wanted to put down that not all sites are going to be readily available to be able to schedule that are located in close range. So at worst case scenario, I put individual sites, and it's based upon each individual site and an insight meeting quarterly, and that includes their first initial setting. So that's 4 in total visits in person per site. So that's worst case scenario of having to travel to each individual site in the time frame that would entail a practice navigator to travel to all of those sites. Now keep in mind that many of those areas, go ahead.
No,
I was going to add that it is very, very, we've been very successful at scheduling close range entities and organizations that we could see multiple, if not 3 of those sites at one time. So I don't see that as a major barrier in our organizational skills of being able to schedule these entities in close range. But again, just keep in mind that this is worst case scenario of fees that would be entailed if we had to schedule individually and travel to each individual site.
This is Sandra. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question based off of Les's question. In our budget, you said that there was a allocation for another expanding the navigators and adding another position. Was that for a full FTE or a half of FTE? Because the S-bar here has a half FTE, so I'm not sure if we are taking that, using that half, if we were only planning to add a half FTE, or if we were always planning to add a full FTE, and how that works out. Because if we only had a half FTE and now we're doing another half FTE, do we not still need that FTE for the work that we're doing within our region? Are we trying to make it whole? I'm a little lost there.
So Sandra, I can answer that question. We put in for a full FTE in our operations budget. And asked for 0.5 for this particular project, but we knew that we were going to need another person mid-year, so we just ended up putting 1 full FTE in our budget.
Okay. Because I was only asking because those are different. If we only had a half a FTE in our budget, then that wouldn't have answered Les's questions about needing to allocate funding towards it. But since you put a full FTE, I think it makes sense.
So, Sam, it's Ronnie.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, so, I'm with Les. I am concerned about the money thing, and then there is I want some wiggle room for you guys. And the job, we look for excellence from you guys because you guys do a really good job at what you do. And if you needed wiggle room in that, how much wiggle room would you need? Can we round that up to 40,000? and be good with it? Or would you think wiggle room would be up to $5,000, and then whatever you guys are spending, whatever's not spent, we can put back into the budget? Well, back into...
So Ronnie, based on the scenario that's presented with the mileage costs and the resources, that is worst case scenario. It includes anything and everything at highest capacity of what it would cost us as an expense. So yes, that would give us plenty of wiggle room to be able to complete this project and be successful at it.
So if we brought that up to 40,000, that's what you're saying? Or left it at 36?
So to add the $16.20 more to just to make it even, yes.
So,
I was
so,
thinking that
so,
36,000. I'm dead in the water over here.
okay, so you guys, this is Brian. Look, I think what we're doing here is, so the grant is worth $36,000. That's what's available to us as a revenue as a result of this decision, right? So let's say you get selected, it's going to cost you $69 or $70,000 essentially, worst case scenario, to perform the project that's going to pay you $36,000. And if it was just something as simple as, hey, should we go after a $36,000 grant that's going to cost us $70,000 to provide? I would argue no. But I think the issue is not about the 36 or 40 or 45, whatever it is. I think this has to do with what are we doing to set up ourselves for the future as we go forward through the GCACH and what's its future. And this actually, to me, begins to fund some of that early development. So I would be favorable to it. I think following year, the Rural Health Committee may be able to ask for an additional sum of money to that grant, amend the grant, help us out a little more. That's great. But I think what we're really talking about here is an investment that, or deciding whether we want, it's time now to invest in that future rather than doing it later. And that's kind of my vision. I don't know that it makes any difference about $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 more than the 36,000. I think that's a fixed number of dollars that's coming from a third party.
I just want to they're going to take this on, that they're taking it on at a level that they can take it on, and they're not squeaking by, and they're not, those kind of things. But I'm with you. I don't want them sleeping in their car. I don't want them hanging out at the rest areas trying to get a couple of minutes of sleep, and then somebody comes in and breaks in and takes all their stuff. So
Okay.
So I would like to make the motion to accept the recommendation as written. If there needs to be something that comes up that they need to amend, that they have the ability to come back to the board and request an amendment to what we vote on here today. Second.
Bit long, but yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you, Les.
I believe that this is the right way to go. I think that you put a lot of thought into this. I think it's I think you know what we would guide into if we do get this, and I think it's reasonable. It looks very good, and I'm a little excited about the opportunity. So I'm trying not to
be excited. Be excited. This is something to be excited about.
And that was a very long second. So.
Rhonda?
Oh, she says I have to go at 3 p.m. Please have Brian chair the rest of the meeting. I vote yes for the referral.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Rhonda.
So you need me to finish up?
Yeah, you need to finish up.
Okay. Well, so we've got a motion and a second. No further conversation, I'm assuming. So I go ahead and call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none, I think this motion passes as well.
I'd just like the record to reflect that I abstained from voting. This is Julie Peterson.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks.
Okay. What's next?
Brian, we have two more things. We have the domain one approval of the IP distribution, and then the behavioral health training fund application and district budget.
Yeah. District budget.
And the district budget, which was primarily the biggest district budget was the use of the $50,000 in backstop funding, and then
we did that.
basically approved the allocation of in the operations budget to fund the staff salaries.
Right.
So we just wanted to show you what the district budget looks like for next year.
Okay.
So we kind of kept it the same format as the column of the 2020 budget, 2019 budget, and 2019 actual. It follows the same format as Carol said. It follows the milestones, and there's a couple of the new milestones that are going over in the new toolkit for 2020. And then we have the salaries. I think one thing to point out in the salaries is that we reduced the amount that we were taking out for the salaries because we had almost $400,000 left operations budget that we pulled over, and so we're not pulling as much out this time as we did last time because we have so far.
Right.
And put a line item in the contingency fund for the backstop funding that was approved today.
Yes.
And then also, I want to note too that part of the budget and fund is to approve this, and we didn't have a quorum. So this was presented to them, but not approved because there wasn't enough.
That's right. So you didn't have enough people in the budget and funds flow to act, and it just moves up to the board to approve, correct?
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. I move to approve.
Move to approve. I second.
Okay. Any conversation that needs to happen here? 'Cause we did talk about this in Finance Committee. All right. All those in favor of this proposal?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Carol.
Yeah, we'll cover the approval of the domain one IGT distribution. So this was a vote that was done electronically. You guys approved this. Again, these are IGT fund transfers that have to be approved by the board of directors. All ACHs can get paid with IGT funding. It was passed and approved through an electronic vote. We just wanted to point that out as kind of a follow-up. That's what we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. So that's a done deal. And then finally, we're bringing back the application for the behavioral health fund, and scrambling trying to find my piece of paper because there's so many. No, but there were two. Thank you. There were two changes that the board asked us to make to the application. One was, here it is. One was to request what, if any, opportunities for bidirectional integration, interprofessional education, or cross-training would be available as part of this internship. So we added that question. The other question that you asked us to add was what target population do you aim to address through this internship, which we included in this application. And then we added a budget template, which is on the back page, that includes sources of revenue in case they are already funding their interns through a scholarship or a foundation, and then a place for their expenses and their planned budget for that. So those were the suggestions that the board requested, which have been made, and they were in front of you for approval.
Okay. I appreciate you incorporating all that from the last discussion. I recall all of that material too, and that's all in there now. We would need a motion to approve this application, correct?
This is Sandra. I'll make that motion.
Excellent. Do we have a second? Okay. Very good.
This is Ronnie. Second.
You're gonna put wrong.
Eric, I'm gonna let Jorge.
Yeah, it's Jorge. What do you think?
So,
Okay.
does anybody have Anybody have any more conversation following up from last month? We kind of went into this in detail last month, did we not? And
we did.
Yeah, we did. So, is there any other thoughts, any other comments that need to be made before we move forward on this? Okay. So I'll call the question on this one too. So we need a motion, right? Or we have a motion? You guys did make a motion.
We got a motion and a second.
Motion and a second. So it's time to call all in favor of the motion.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. This motion carries as well. Carol, do you have any other material to present today?
I think we've covered everything on the agenda.
Really good, because that was a lot.
We did. It was a lot of material. Thank you, board members, for your service this year, and we have made a great holiday. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.